It's that time. It's 7 o'clock. It's Thursday, and I've just eaten my dinner. This may not have been the best idea. I literally just smashed my dinner down. I got a burp. Sorry. Oh man, that's not a great start to a video, is it? How do I recover from that? Well, let me tell you, it is a half marathon special, but it is also just mainly questions about running and life and everything in between. And what I would like to do today is I will take questions from people as always. So by all means, make sure that if you have a question about running, you can ask it, particularly if it's a half marathon style question, whether it be pacing, nutrition, training, anything in the lead up or afterwards, then give me a shout, hit me up, and I'll see if I can answer the questions. But I thought what I'd do, I said last week, I'll work backwards from marathon. So last week was a marathon special. We're going to go half marathon this week, 10K next week, 5K the week after, and then we might move on to triathlon, or I'll take offers from the floor, whatever people want. Let's say hello to a few people first. That's always nice, isn't it? Andy, hello. Barry as well. Jake and Winona. Hi, guys. How you doing? Coffee is life, Barry. That is absolutely correct. I only have one a day now because I used to drink about 9, and in the end, and it was all instant, and it was horrible. We'll talk about coffee, actually. I've got an interesting theory about coffee and training. But I only have one now, and that is the first thing in the morning, and it is beautiful. Okay, half marathon. Let's talk about the training for half marathon. Now, when I was training for my half marathons and Mary as well, then we tended to hang around the between 5K on our recovery weeks and 15K marks. Never really went over that in the training, except for one time when we got up to 18 kilometers just before the taper started. So the first thing to reassure you, I guess, is that when you're training for a half marathon, you really don't need to run anywhere near, and I've got hiccups as well, that distance, because your body, as we said with the marathon, is very capable on the day of finishing the job, if you like. So if you train and you run consistently between 10 and say 15K, and then you maybe dabble to 18, that's absolutely fine. I'm very much from the school less is more training, and that is absolutely fine as long as you're nice and consistent in your training. And it's not like you've only done 115K and then you run a half marathon. Your body will be able to do the rest on the day. I absolutely believe that. In fact, I believe most people could go out and run a half marathon now, and it might not be nice and it might hurt for a long time after, but your body is very capable of a lot more than you give it or I give it credit for. By the way, sorry about what I'm wearing. I have been out. This was what I was wearing. I went out for a run and I haven't had time to change. So just wearing a skanky free t-shirt, and it smells too. Just lucky. You'd be lucky it's not smell-o-vision. Now, who else is here? Mike and Melissa. Hi, Brendan. How you doing? Interval training for a half marathon. I can explain that. Bear with me and I will do that. Jake did a solo half marathon a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, you did 1:33, didn't you? So 18:42 is your 5K PB. So you know it's your endurance that's lacking. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like your aerobic base, actually, Jake. Lots of building on the aerobic base, and then you can put that 18:42 speed on top. So it is a lot of training in the low zones there. Mike, my theory on coffee is, well, let's call it caffeine. If you haven't watched my, I think it was my London marathon video, then you might not know my theory, but it's essentially I take with me 2 Pro Plus. So I have a coffee before the race, and that gets me through. Coffee is a legal ergogenic aid. It does improve performance. That's been proven in scientific tests over and over again. But I take some Pro Plus, which is basically a caffeine bomb, and I take them at about 30 kilometers, and the pain goes, and I get an extra kick, and so I get that second hit. And it's just caffeine, as if you were taking it in a gel, I guess. Some people take caffeine gels, but I take it in a pill. And it absolutely, it takes the pain away, and you get a kick. So a little tip there for you. I've forgotten where I was. So I was on half marathon training, wasn't I? Was that right? Oh, I was talking about Jake's aerobic base. Yes, so you need to build an aerobic base, and that's very true for half marathon and marathon training. Is the aerobic base? If you are a fast runner, as in you can run a sub 19-minute 5K, then but your endurance drops off quite significantly. Let's say when you get to half marathon, it's not it's nothing to worry about. It's just something to work on. It's something to focus on, and usually it will be the aerobic base underneath. That you'll need to focus on, as in keeping in zones 1 and 2, making sure that if you're working to heart rate, you're there, or if not, then you need to be at like 6 out of 10 in terms of effort, be able to hold a conversation. And that's when you're roughly in zone 2, roughly training in the right place. But there's no substitute for heart rate training, heart rate zones, and not the wrist one either. They're notoriously what's the word, hard to trust, really. The heart rate straps are the way. So if you haven't got one, it's a thought. It's possibly worth investing in, but I'm not saying do it, because they can be expensive. Scott, how you doing? And Chris and Alexandru, hello. You recently had minor cramp in your calf, and now it just feels very tight and you can feel a knot in it. Any suggestions on what you can and can't do? Ooh, calf injuries, and I would suggest, if you feel like you've still got a knot in it, it might not have been cramp. It might have been a slight tear that has then started building up scar tissue, or the muscle is maybe contracting to protect itself. So be very careful with that. If it feels painful, I would stop. Don't run on pain. We've all been there. I've made that mistake. I made that mistake in January, didn't I? And I was out for 3 months. So take a step back. If it gets above 4 out of 10, cut the session. Adam, you're currently doing my half marathon training plan and loving it. Thanks. Good man. Thanks. Wondering about foam rolling and when you should do it. You do quite an extensive cool down and stretching. Well, I foam roll kind of while I'm watching the TV. Adam, really, I sometimes I'll do it straight after my stretch when I'm running. Sometimes I'll do it whilst I'm watching TV. I try and get it done 3-4 times a week. It doesn't always get done, but I try to anyway. So just whenever you're feeling it, whenever you're watching TV and you could be doing something else, consider doing a bit of a foam roll as well. Andy, do I use gels? Right. So, okay, good shout. Let's talk about nutrition and hydration within a half marathon and within your training. Now, my personal stance, my personal belief on hydration for half marathon training is that for the majority of the time, with the distances you're doing, you don't need to take drink or water out with you unless it's a very hot day. Then the chances are you'll be fine while you're out there. I do take gel, but I don't often use it. Oh, is my connection back? Did I drop out there? Is the connection back? Let me know in the comments if it's dropping out. I just got a sign saying the connection is unstable. Anyway, in training, I take an emergency gel with me, but I try not to use it because I don't go near half marathon distance or pace when I'm training. So if I'm take 2 gels in a half marathon, that's it. I take one at about 45 minutes and one at 1 hour 15. And I mean, or maybe a little bit earlier. I usually run, my PB is 123. I think I could do faster than that, but I've always been injured when it's come to flat courses. But I do take 2 gels. The second one's more of a kind of just get yourself to the end hard. So, but the first one is after 45 minutes. I don't take drinks with me on a half marathon race, anything. The gels that I have are enough. And, I think, like I said before, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, you should be hydrated before you go. You'll be fine. Okay, let's have a look. Wowzers, we got lots of comments to go through. Franny, hi, how you doing? I'm not sure, but do you have a video on the equipment you use to film your running? I don't have a video on the equipment I use to film my running, but I just use a GoPro Hero 8. In fact, I've got it right here. This is what I use. I just carry it with me. I don't have a microphone or anything like that with it. I know Ben Parks has an external microphone that he puts on the top of it, but I like to put mine away in my flip belt whilst I'm not filming. You wouldn't be able to do that if you had a microphone. So GoPro Hero 8 is what I use. Amazing stabilization. Mike, the Couch to 5K 6-week plan is working. You're at week 5 and 4-kilometer run on Saturday, but you find it very hard not to quit after the first kilometer. What do you mean by that, Mike? Oh, if I keep going after kilometer 3, it becomes almost too easy, and I could keep going for an hour, although my body hurts more. Weird. What is it? It's like starting a cold engine, isn't it? Like, I find that when I go out for runs, sometimes I'll go out and the first kilometer is pretty grim, and then you find your straps, you hit your straps, and you're off to the races, and everything feels good. And you could, like, I had a run today, I did 8K, and I could have run forever, but I had to reel myself in, make sure I'm building gradually and not getting injured. So it's probably just that starting aspect is more difficult, but as long as you stick to the plan, you'll be good, you'll be golden. Is a walk as effective as a cool down, or must it be a slow jog? Depends on the session. I did my jog today, and then I dropped into the house, grabbed Winnie and took her for a walk, and that was my cool down, and then I came home and stretched. So yeah, absolutely, a walk would be fine. Is it still dropping out, or are we back in, or are we good? Tell me if the connection is bad. It might be that Mary's on the internet downstairs as well, so that's not particularly helpful. Can you just someone comment that they can see me now and I'm back in? Otherwise, I'm just talking to myself. Okay. Candy's just got back from a run following the marathon plan. It's so helpful for motivation during lockdown. Well, thank you. And I mean, any plan, any structure from anyone is nice to stick to, isn't it? It's quite necessary, especially in these lockdown times, to feel like you have structure and purpose, or it certainly does for me. So which brand gel? I use Cis gels, Science in Sport, because they are mixed with water, so they're much more palatable. They're much easier for the gut to take. They're not too sugary. They're not too sweet. I felt I used to take other gels and they would just cramp my stomach up. So yeah, Science in Sport gels are the ones that I'm using. Okay, so the connection, just let me know if the connection drops out. It seems fine at the moment, and I'll just bail on it if it keeps dropping in and out, because it'll just make a terrible video. So Mike has a strange question. Let's read it. If when running you get an adrenaline rush, do you need to be careful about hitting a low soon after? It happened in one of my races. Yeah, that's a difficult one, really, Mike. Depends on what you mean by adrenaline rush. I get it. There's a thing called the inverted U hypothesis. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but basically, so you have, a state of anxiety that you want to be at, and it looks like this. This is the U, okay? And if you're here, you're not, it's called arousal. So sorry about the rude word, but you know what I mean. You're not aroused enough, okay? As in, your performance will be here if you're not aroused enough. But also, like you say, with the adrenaline and hitting the crash afterwards, that's kind of over aroused here. What you want is to be at the top of the bell curve here in terms of your level of arousal, your anxiety levels, your stress levels, your adrenaline levels. You want that to be just in that perfect place. And if you get there, that's kind of hitting, that's getting in the zone, that's being in the zone. But it's a very difficult one to answer in terms of any race. I would say the way that I get into the zone, mainly, if you're interested, is I absolutely nail my preparation, like leave nothing to chance. I practice everything in training. I wear the clothes that I'm going to race in training. I find out about the course. If I can, I'll cycle it or run it or whatever. If I'm doing a triathlon or a run, I will look into everything, so that on the day there are no surprises and I can just relax. And it really tends to work for me. I tend to get to a race, to the start line, and I'm so calm and so ready, and nothing is a surprise. And that seems to work for me. And like I say, I only have my one coffee, and I know some people have 3 or 4 or 5, and that's like, again, that can push you over the U and over arouse you. So it's not a strange question, Mike, at all. And I hope that explained it slightly, or it was helpful in some way. Kaiser wanted to ask you that when you run for a while, you feel pain in the lower left side of your body. Is it normal or something? If it is, how can it be reduced? Where's the pain? I mean, I would worry about that a little bit. If you're getting pain, if it's muscular pain, maybe, but if it's pain up and around your vital organs, stop running, man, and try and work it out. But if it's muscular pain, then the chances are you've got some kind of technical deficiency, I would call it, or, you know, something you need to tweak in order to make it better and less painful. And that is by getting a gait analysis, get someone who knows what they're doing to watch you run. That's always worth doing. So back to the half marathon. I think some people ask me how long they think that you should give it to train for a half marathon. And the answer is difficult because it depends obviously where your starting point is. Let's say we were all starting from scratch and we had never run before. I mean, I think you need to give it at least a year just to, if you want to do yourself justice and it not being particularly horrendous. But if you have run, if you can run, even if you're at 5K, it's just a matter of just extending it bit by bit. You probably still need a half a year or something to get into really good nick, but people can do a half marathon training plan from scratch. Like I set one up that was kind of 6 weeks, but that's for people that are running. But you could do one, you know, 12 weeks would be fine. But just be careful, you know, there's no rush. That's what I always say. This is a lifelong thing. There's no hassles, no rush, no stress. It's a relationship for life. So when you get there, you get there. I didn't run a marathon for the first kind of 7 or 8 years that I'd been running. I wanted to do it properly when I got there. But that's just me. I am a little bit weird. So, Mike, okay, you're answering Kaiser. So that's good. So other things that we need to consider when we're half marathon training. Let me think. Okay, then Brendan asked about interval training, didn't he? Brendan, I would say yes, to a certain extent in a half marathon, you need a bit of speed. You know, you don't need speed necessarily when you're marathon training. You can do speed work, absolutely, to mix it up, but with a half marathon, you are able to run a bit faster, and you would and could benefit if you do it carefully by doing some interval training sessions. Now, they don't need to be super aggressive. I'm not talking about interval training sessions like you would do for a 5K or below, but some interval sessions. I mean, there's plenty on the channel, but off of the top of my head, some things that are easy. I do a one called a 777, which is you run for 7 minutes. You do about a 10-minute warm up first, slow jog, easy, dynamic drills, all that. Then you do 7 minutes at 6 out of 10 feel. So probably about your marathon pace. 7 minutes at 7 out of 10 feel, which is probably about your 10K half marathon pace. And then 7 minutes at your 8 out of 10 feel, which is your 10K-ish. And then you have a cool down. So interval sessions where you're mixing the speeds up, but you're not necessarily going 10 out of 10 for short distances, because you don't need that. But it's good for the body to mix up paces that it's running at, and it's good for the body to feel a bit of speed going on in there, especially for a half marathon. So hopefully that answered your question. If you're looking for specific interval training sessions, and there's a number on the channel, and I think there might have even been on the half marathon training plan. I may have alluded to some of the sessions, but let me know in the comments. I don't know for sure. Andy, what amount of caffeine is best? You've tried. Well, that's a bit of a how long is a piece of string, because it all depends on you and how much caffeine you drink in daily life. And so for me, like I say, I'm religious about having 1 coffee a day, so that I know come race day, it will affect me. Whereas when I used to drink 9 coffees in a day, then caffeine didn't really touch the sides. I wasn't really responsive to it because my body was just used to it. So it varies between people and how much caffeine that they drink in general. I've got a lot of friends that drink a lot of caffeine, and they're probably less responsive to it than me, whereas I'm very highly responsive to it. And you can reduce, you can reduce your caffeine intake, no problems, over time. And that way you make yourself more receptive on race day. It's just an idea. But I mean, I have 1 coffee before the race. I don't know how much caffeine is in the coffee, but I have 1 coffee before the race, and I have in a marathon, I have a couple of Pro Plus at about 30K. I don't have anything else in any of the others, and I don't have caffeine in my gels. I have non-caffeinated gels. because I don't need any more caffeine. It can, again, send me over the edge of the inverted U hypothesis into a place where I'm kind of burning out, my heart's going too hard, all of those things. So Jay, discuss your thoughts on walk run training for marathon. Okay, I will do that. Bear with me. Is there a heart rate zone versus pace comparison? So if I want to train at heart rate zone 2, is there a rough pace difference that's the equivalent to it? I.e. 30 seconds to 1 minute slower than a faster run? No, it's all very different, Chris. I mean, over time, you'll find out your particular differences, but everyone's got different heart rates. My heart rate is quite functions quite high, whereas friends that are the same fitness as me have low heart rates. So there's lots of things, there's lots of factors, and you can only know your own pace versus heart rate and things like that. So I mean, for example, my tempo pace, my kind of a 170 heart rate, which is what I'd call tempo for me, which is high zone 3, equates to 4 minute kilometers on the flat ish. And yet my zone 2 on the flat will be kind of 430 to 450, but it's so different. And only you can get used to it yourself and know your own differences. So I know my heart rates and paces so well now, and it's about learning that really. I wouldn't compare yourself to anyone else or a standard chart or anything like that. It does make sense. I hope my answer made sense. Franny, what are some of the core principles you should look for in a running coach? That you get on with them. If you're looking for a running coach, you need to be able to just get on with them. You need to be able to work with them. And, I'd say most coaches out there are good dudes. They're good people. I've met some brilliant men and women that have inspired me to be better as coaches when I was on my level 3 triathlon course. But also you will meet the odd person that thinks they know it all. And it's about you sifting through that. Don't get bogged down with technology or whether they know Training Peaks or not. The fact is, the coach for you will be the one that you get on with best, because it's a relationship. I get on with the athletes I coach really, really well. There's back and forth, and they ask me to change the plans. Sometimes I give them my feedback. They tell me what they think, and it works. And you need to look for that in a coach, like a bit of a symbiotic relationship, I'd call it. Marty, how you doing? You got a lot of pain in your knees for the past few months and you've been resting for a few weeks and it's finally gone. Oh, I'm excited for you. Take it easy. Don't go back to where you were before you got the injury. Start low again. Build yourself back in. You know that, though. Matthew, I'm very well, thank you. Started going on trails and off-road recently and you're feeling sore in places you haven't before. It is absolutely normal. Yeah, you're told it's normal. How do you gauge when that soreness tips over to a niggle or an injury? 4 out of 10. That would be mine. You are going to be using different stabilizing muscles. You're going to be walking over roots, going up hills, running on different cambers. But when you get to a pain above a 4 out of 10, that's when I think stop. That's when your body is telling you something is wrong. Under 4 out of 10, it's just the different muscles. It's using them for the first time, and it's kind of the wear and tear of running. So, but you need to get to know your body well enough to know that you're a 4 out of 10. And it's a skill, because look at me over in Australia at Christmas. I was running. I knew the pain was a 6, 7 out of 10, and I carried on. So I can preach it, but I've got to practice it, and I'm trying to be better. We're all trying to be better. Adam, thanks for talking about the intervals for half marathon. I've been doing the 12-week plan and doing 10-minute warm-up, 30 minutes, 1 minute full pelt, and 1 minute very easy. Is this too excessive for half marathon? I mean, no, as long as it's not often. You don't need to do those types of sessions often, but, it's good to, like you say, wake up a little bit of speed, 1 minute on, 1 minute off. But for 30 minutes, I'd say probably is quite excessive. That means you're doing 15 minutes of full pelt, which is kind of, it's a long time. I tended to do 10 minutes and I did 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So I did 5 minutes of full pelt. It's quite a lot, and it is quite aggressive, but if you're managing it and if you're enjoying it, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be careful. Mike, is it wise to carb load a few days before, as carb loading starting to become less important? Yeah, I think it's becoming less important, to be honest with you. A good balanced diet with carbohydrates in it it will see you absolutely fine. I don't think there's any need to mess around with carb load. It could go wrong more than it could go right, put it that way. If you just keep eating what you always eaten and you keep it sensible, then you're going to be all right. Like, don't change anything in the lead up to a race or race day. That's the golden rule. It's race how you've trained and eat how you've eaten and all of that. Eclavia, thanks for sharing the knowledge and experience. Well, it is, I'm trying my best, but yeah, no, it's, I appreciate that I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I am trying to help. So I appreciate that. Thank you. My personality gives a lot of positive vibes. Oh, thanks. Well, I do try. That's the bit I do try on. I'm all about the positivity. So I will stay safe and you stay safe too. Thanks. Brendan, going to start the 6-week half marathon training plan, which has interval training for 40 minutes and 1 hour session. Just wondering what I need to include. Brendan, is it included in the description of the video? Sometimes I actually write the interval sessions down there. Let me know, because on the newer plans I wrote each of the interval sessions and what they are. David, hello. You did a half marathon along local roads 2 weeks ago and you're still feeling wiped out. Anything to shed light on why? How hard did you go? Did you go hard? There tends to be always, if you've been building to something for a long while, there tends to be this, I guess, period of like your body going, bloody hell, that was hard afterwards. And then you have to take some time. You can't always train as hard as that all the way to a half marathon and then after. There has to be up and down periods, and there's give and take, yin and yang with the training cycle. And if you feel wiped out, be wiped out. Allow yourself to be wiped out is always my advice, even to Mary. If she's wiped out, I just say, like, let it happen. Don't try and smash through it with blunt force. It is what it is. So yeah, you're probably going to suffer a bit of being wiped out. And sometimes it's psychological as much as it is physical, because you've built to that goal for so long. And then you're like, well, what's next? Or what do I do now after you've done your race? Lots of people tend to do that after big races that they've been training for, like marathons and stuff. You know, you see a lot of people train for a marathon and love the process, but once they get past that marathon, they almost like drop out of running, because that's what they've achieved. And it's almost too much to then get themselves back on the horse and go again and start in a different place. So I always lock things in long term, like make sure that I go from the marathon, I go, right, okay, what's next? Always what's next. And I don't mean not living in the moment, because I absolutely try to, but I love having things locked down. Okay, well, I think that's all the questions answered. Hopefully I've answered most of the questions about a half marathon and training and racing. If you have anything more, then please, by all means, ask me. But I've already eaten, which is a bonus, but I'm going to call it hopefully before I get to 30 minutes, because they're getting longer and longer. If you have any questions about 10K running or any running questions in general, make sure that you leave a comment on this video, and I will endeavor to answer it next week or within the week. I might reply to you if I don't think I can fit it into the live next week. And I hope everyone's well. The vlog for Sunday, at this stage, I literally have no idea what it's going to be. I'm at a point where I'm almost starting to panic, because usually I have an idea well in advance, but I'm like, I don't know what it's going to be. So it could be anything. Just keep your eyes open. Hopefully it helps. Hopefully it's enjoyable to watch. And everybody have a lovely Thursday. I'm going to bail now, because I think we've naturally reached the end of the half marathon training plan chat. Okay, have a lovely evening. Have a lovely Friday, and I'll see you Sunday, and take care. And thanks for the interaction. It really means a lot. Peace out.